Hey,
Where is he?
what's happening?
Where's he gone?
There's two of us.
I don't understand. It's awkward already.
Be honest though, Wes. We know
He's
where he
all
is.
right.
Where is
Yeah.
he?
He just sent us a photo, didn't he? Sat in the back of a limo going to a wedding in Porto.
Yeah, looking
So
like Jay Z.
considerate. Yeah,
Yeah,
looking like Jay Z.
Lena's in already. I'm
Mate,
sorry. There's no three here,
it's
Lena.
just
There's
double act
just
today.
yeah, just me and Wes, but a very special guest as well.
Yeah,
So we're gonna
extremely.
bring
Can't wait
them
for
on
this one.
soon.
Get your
Hey
flags
John,
in
how's
the
it
chat,
going?
guys. I want to see where you're at. Let's get them going. Let's get them going.
Yeah. So yeah, welcome to the Water Cooler Brand Talks yet again, people. How's everyone doing? Hope you're all well. Let us know. Drop your names in the comments, what you do and where you're from as well. Last week, Wes, do you remember? It was great because we saw lots of different conversations happening in the comments,
Yeah,
like with each other.
finally starting to happen like what we wanted to do, like start these organic chats, start this organic community, start collaborating between yourselves, like I think
Exactly.
that's how we started as a group as Wham, and I think you guys need to do the same, like collaborate, and let's just start fruiting some
Yeah,
wealth.
it was great to read those comments afterwards and during the show as well. And that's like Wes said, this is what this show's about. It's like gathering together, connecting,
Yeah,
sharing
sharing
opinions and
knowledge
thoughts, just like a water cooler at work and learning and growing together. So
and killing that
um,
last hour of work that nobody really wants to do on a Friday.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So let's make it happen again this week. Yeah, get active in the comments. And just before we get started, for those of you who are just joining us for the first time, let's explain what this show is about. I think Martin mentioned this last time. I think we kind of need to just for the new people. So yeah, do you want to like Wes? What is it? What are
So
we
this
about?
was
What are we
all
doing?
birthed. Again, I don't know if people's probably listen back, but yeah, the strategy was for us is to let's raise our awareness, right, and let's get in front of people. But our zig or our zag was like, okay, how can we do this different? So rather than just hyping and selling and promoting the the live with the guest, our kind of USP or the thing we want to own is like we surprise you with a guest, so you don't know who's going to rock up, and that creates some FOMO, I guess, and then hopefully after, then you guys will obviously rack up and start promoting us after and share the replay, and then you can join back in on obviously Spotify and Apple and things like that. So that was the concept, and that's how we want to keep it going. So yeah, if you guys have got any suggestions, I think that's a good time to bring this up. Who you want us to get in, who you want us to dig into, and learn a little bit more. I think it's we can have always reach out to one of us on LinkedIn or pop it in the chat here. I think we're booked now until March next year, which is something I never thought I'd say. Considering it was just me, you, and Martin drinking, um, you know, at the end of the week. Um,
It's crazy. It's just yeah, it's absolutely mental. March 2025 with like booked and there's some serious guests lined up as well. I'm just yeah, and do us a favor, guys, as well. I know a lot of you here rock up to the live, but to support us, go to YouTube, Water Cooler Brand Talk, search for it. You'll find it. Subscribe, follow us there as well, and just peep some previous episodes that you might not have seen, and yeah, just engages with us there. Spotify, Apple, Audible, Amazon Music, everywhere. We're everywhere.
Before we get into the bit though, like, come on, share a bit of positive this week. I've actually, hand on heart, to everyone's listening and watching, I haven't actually spoke to you properly for, in fact, yeah, this whole week, which is
That's not a
bizarre.
positive, was.
I mean, it is. It's great.
That's a positive that you've not.
Come
Yeah.
on, give me some positives of this week. What's happened?
You know what? It's been quite crazy. I've been working on some brand work with Martin. You've been obviously deep into your publicist stuff and other stuff.
And the
I'm
big
not sure
search engine that might be popular.
yeah, I'm not sure whether you can talk about the other bigger client that everyone knows about, but yeah, but you've been busy there. So we've been doing that in the background. Some tone of voice work, some following up on some strategy work and doing the execution work from a strategy session that we did actually, me and you, Wes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
yeah,
a big
oh yeah,
meeting. Tell everyone.
Sorry,
What about the big thing that you're not telling everyone?
you always surprise me. Like,
No,
what's the big thing?
have you
What,
not?
you buying a new car?
No, have you not been recording something? Is there not things in the pipeline that you're gonna?
Oh, well, my course, you mean?
Oh yeah, that one.
Oh yeah, no, but I think I mentioned that. I've finished
Well,
that. Yeah,
you can mention
submitted. Let's see now. I've not got a date when it's launching, but another thing I am doing, I'm going to create another brand storytelling course as well, and see if we can kind of help smaller businesses in between the like the freelancers to yeah the smaller teams. So I'm
that.
looking forward to that. But I want to do something a little bit different. But anyway, enough
Yeah.
about
Enough of the
me
small talk.
and
Let's get to
you.
the big talk.
Yeah, let's get into today's episode, shall we?
Yes,
So,
please.
topic today is what makes consumers keep buying. And look, we kind of titled this episode as a bit of a provocation, and the provocation is this. From me, at least, my point of view, isn't it time we stop seeing people we want to build relationships with as consumers? Like for me, I think consumers suggest that people just buy from us and that's it. And I think yes, they are more and more fickle these days, and we're going to dig into that. But on the flip side as well, maybe that's all customers want. Do they really want to be part of a brand? Is loyalty towards certain products and organizations dead? We're gonna dig into this, and we have a very special guest joining us to give us her thoughts. She is an experienced and seasoned marketing professional who has worked in senior marketing roles in house for likes of Disney, Viacom, and just recently left Puma. She is now the founder of her own company, Unmatched Brands. It's an absolute
Mm.
pleasure to welcome Oana Leonte
She's
to
one
the
of the
Water
nicest
Cooler
people
Brand
that I have
Talks.
ever met. I'm just going to say that. I'm just going
Here
to
we
embarrass
go.
her now.
Oana Leonte.
Here she is.
Okay.
Hi,
Hello.
thank you for having me. Hey.
Yo. We made it happen finally.
Yes, took
Finally.
us a while. Thank you for having me.
No
Uh,
worries.
how 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 are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. It's been a crazy week as well, talking about positives, so
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
positives this
Tell us.
week, and it's just ending on a high note with you guys over here to have this conversation.
It's a shame you're missing the other one, but
I know, but he's
you've
having a
experienced
much
all
better
three of us
time,
before.
I think.
Yeah. So Anna, you're a friend of Wham, like all three of us, and because we were guests on the Match podcast, but
Exactly.
for those of who don't know you as well, what should they know about you, and maybe actually go through when you first started your career in marketing, why it appealed to you as a future vocation for you, and take us through that kind of a little bit of a chronological journey.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing that maybe is worth noting about me is that I think that for the last probably 20 plus years, I've been on a journey of just finding my voice. And that's literally where I am right now. Still in that process, but much closer, I think, to where I started. And I think it has to do with the fact that I actually didn't know that I was going to be a marketer. If you would have asked me when I was much younger, I would have never said I wanted to be a marketer. What I knew always is that I wanted to be in business. My parents were entrepreneurs. I was born in Romania. In a very like Eastern European culture for the win, performance driven. You got to be the best, be the first, be the winner. Never give up, God forbid, like you cannot be weak, which served me in so many ways. But on the other side, it also kind of deprived me of, that tuning into my voice and that creativity. And creativity wasn't really something that was spoken about or even experienced, in my home
Mm.
in a big way. I don't remember, doing a lot of stuff that was actually creative in a typical sense, like going to museums and seeing art or experiencing music in a big way,
Mm.
it was just very different. um, Now looking back, I think that the creativity was always there, but in a very different way, and I didn't really spot it at the time. So it was completely by accident that I ended up working at Disney in 2003 in Madrid. I spent 14 years in Spain, and completely by accident I landed on a intern job at Disney. And I took it. I didn't know what to expect. It was a licensing role, and I took it. I had no idea what licensing was all about. But it was really the entry to an amazing magical world that I always talk about. The fact that that's where I learned about true marketing and how you build a brand. There's
Mm.
nobody better than Disney to teach you how to do that, right? And so that was just the starting point. It opened the doors to so many other amazing experiences. I went on to work in advertising as well as a sales associate, and then I went on to work at Warner Brothers again for consumer products and Viacom, and then I ended up in fashion, and then I decided to leave Spain and I moved to Germany and spent 10 years at Puma, which has been just a fantastic experience. So here I am. After 10 years with one of the best ever brands that you can work for, I decided to finally bet on myself and finally find that voice that I've always looked for. It's still a journey, as I said, but I'm so happy that I'm just getting closer and closer to it.
Amazing.
And this evolution of now, you obviously going out on your own. You've started your own company, which is the Unmatched Brands. What was the impetus for that then? What was that bubbling in the background for a while? Is it something that you wanted to do for years, or was it kind of a spur of the moment thing that you feel like now is the time?
So, I never told the story of how I came to the Unmatched name.
Mm.
And I think this is going to be probably the first time, which is kind of funny. It started with a question. It started literally with a question about 4 years ago. I was closing up on my 40s after my second child. And, it's one of those moments where you're like, oh, like I ticked all the boxes that I had on my to-do list. All of the things that I was taught that I had to pursue, I did pursue. I got most of the things that I wanted. And then there was this moment I was like, what next? And also in the process of figuring out what next, what am I? Like, am I a good marketer? What kind of a professional am I? Am I good at what exactly? Working in corporate is amazing, but it's also, something that you're not on your own. You're part of a big machine, right? The machine works with or without you. As good as you are, the moment you're gone, and the machine keeps going. You can look, Pumas, it's still up and running without me, and this is the same with literally everyone. I figured that out, and then the question for me was, I need to figure out like who I am and what I stand for and what makes me good. I thought that I was pretty good at my job, but I didn't really know exactly what. And then so the question that came out for me, like, what makes me irreplaceable? Right? That was the question. And then very soon I realized actually it's not about being irreplaceable. It's about being your own thing, being unique, right? So I toyed with this, name, unique and different and stuff. And it wasn't really the thing that I was looking for. And then all of a sudden, like completely different idea, I wanted to create a socks brand. I had so many ideas at the time. It's like, oh, I'm gonna just create a socks brand, and I'm gonna create a socks brand that is like unmatched socks.
Got you. On socks.
Right?
Makes
and
sense.
so like the socks would be like unmatched, and that would be the concept of the business. And I even talked to a friend about it for like a week, and then I dropped it because it's like one of the most saturated markets there is, and like I just gave it was a cool idea, right?
Yeah.
But the name stayed, right? So like this unmatched from like the socks stayed with me, and then I looked into it and I loved the two different meanings of the world, and I thought, wow, actually I don't want to be irreplaceable. I want to be unmatched, right? It's on one side nobody's like me, on the other side I'm not like anyone. I'm not trying to fit in, which has been the theme of my life, which has been the whole journey, and it just felt fitting. So that's how the podcast started. And fast forward to a few years, leaving my corporate role, I've started Unmatched Brands as a brand evolution lab. It's a consultancy lab. At the same time, right now, the Unmatched as a platform, as a community, and as a podcast is growing. And so the vision there is that it's going to develop very soon into a marketing intelligence platform, which is something that I'm so excited about, so motivated about. It's a super ambitious project. I'm building a team around it, which I never thought it would happen so quickly. And I'm going to talk about it more in detail in the next few weeks. But for now, this is just a very special moment in trying to bring this vision to life.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm so inspired and impressed by your how quickly you've gone from yeah, setting up your company to what you've already achieved. And to be fair, I've heard that through Wes a lot, because I know he has a lot of conversations with you
Yeah.
and Martin as well. And I'm just thinking, wow, this is you've just got all this passion and this perseverance, and you're going to make it happen no matter what, which is
Yeah.
great.
I think
Um,
you've got an army behind you, which is amazing. Like, and people need to be part of it. I think that the greatest conversation I ever had with Oana was when she basically reframed like her life change, and she said, I went from to-do lists to non-to-do lists. That's
Uh,
how
mm,
I live my life.
Honestly, guys, if you would have met me like 10 years ago, you would have not recognized me. I was the most analytical, organized person. And then there was a click in my brain a few years ago when I took on the marketing role at Puma. And I think something happened with my brain where literally I'm not able to put a to do list in front of me for whatever. Like the world can end, and I'm not able to
Mm.
stay in a structured space. And it's like my mind is just like wondering. The moment I allowed myself to really be creative and to believe that I was more of a creative than anything else, and it just, until recently, I was kind of like trying to do what the sensible thing would have been, go on the consulting route and just stick there. And then I just had this realization. It just hit me in the face. Like, as much as I want to be that person, I'm not. I'm much more of a builder. I'm much more of a creator. I'm much more of someone that just brings people together.
mm,
And in order for this to work out, I need to lean into that, right? Because otherwise, why would I have left my amazing role at one of the best companies in the world to start to do something on my own if it's not to do the thing that I'm meant to do, you know?
yeah, and it doesn't seem like you're shy of challenges, because
Definitely.
helping companies now, and you mentioned that it is not quite consultancy, but I kind of still feel it is from what I know of you. You want to help companies with their marketing and branding, but doing it in a different way, and that's quite a challenge, right?
Mm.
Simple question here: is it getting harder for companies? Is the landscape getting noisier? What challenges are you seeing from companies, organizations, marketers, and product owners with building brands?
Mm.
Yeah, that's such a good question, and it is very challenging. And I will tell you, it's challenging having been a marketer myself and being a marketer myself, having been in that situation, even in one of the biggest companies out there. The challenges are really big from so many different points of view, right? It's data overload. For a marketer today, it's so much access to information that you don't really know what to prioritize, what to focus on. There's so many different platforms that you need to be on. And as a good marketer, I want to know everything about everything that is out there, but it's impossible,
Mm,
virtually impossible to
Mm.
have a life and be on social media all the time, right? So there's that. And then there's obviously the internal pressures of any company, small or big, where as a marketer you have to answer to the CMO, the CEO. You have to deliver on very specific KPIs. In my opinion, marketing is there to help sell, and I think branding as such is also one of the best performance tools out there, although companies don't necessarily think about that in this way. And so there's a lot of pressure, I feel, from all different angles. If you go back to maybe like 20, 30 years ago of marketing and how that landscape was like, you
Mm.
didn't have as many channels. You maybe had like television, there was magazines. With the internet at one point we had websites and emailing. It was easy. It was so much easier, right? And now we're just living a constant overflow of information and performance driven tactics. Everything is about performance these days, right?
mm,
And I think it makes sense that it's about performance because it's really hard. It's easy. It's much easier to reach a lot of consumers through social media, but it's so much more complicated to
Mm.
actually
mm,
engage with them and to actually make them buy, right? And stay loyal. So I think, when I set out the business, on one side I wanted to help businesses, but then very quickly I realized, and I knew that from before, is that if I want to help businesses and brands get better, I have to help the marketers like me.
Mm.
And my mission has always been, since quite some time now, to help marketers like me find their voice and own their narratives and build better brands for the future. Because, and I'm sure you will agree, we have a lot of brands. Do we need more brands? I don't think so. I think we just need better brands, more
Amen.
responsible,
Yeah.
brands, better products that really cater to consumers and to their needs. And so, to make a long story short, I started out with a consultancy, but I think that that's not going to solve a lot, in
Mm.
my opinion. I want to have a bigger impact. And so, with the Unmatched, as I'm developing it into a marketing intelligence platform, I actually want to help bottom up. I want to help the marketers, the founders, to sort of democratize access to good information and to ignite a bigger collaborative spirit in the industry, so that we can solve those big issues together, as opposed to just in a silo.
Mm.
So it's interesting, like you brought up that word that's key to all this is that loyalty. And I don't want to move into this because I think this is the important part of this conversation. But so what factors do you believe that are crucial then in maintaining or creating that customer loyalty?
It's very hard to say, and I think different companies will tackle this in different ways,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
I think loyalty for a smaller brand is much easier to achieve,
Right.
right? I always look at Gymshark, and I just love the way they build their community. And I know there's a ton of other examples, but because everyone knows Gymshark and everyone is familiar with what they're doing, I just use it always an example, because they're still a small brand. They haven't scaled globally massively. They're so in tune with their community of people that just love to go to the gym, and they stick to that, right? They're very, very loyal themselves to that community. So
Mm.
that's the main takeaway. As a brand, you can't create a community out of nothing. You actually, the way the Gymshark did it, I think that's the best way, is you enter a community that already exists. And if you do the right things, the community will accept you as the leader if you
Mm.
do the right, things for them and to support them. So you can't really just manufacture a community, uh, you know, based on just the product,
Yeah.
because honestly, the product is not so much a differentiator. I mean, as much as I respect Gymshark, I don't think that the product that they do is the best of the best of the best, and there's nothing out there that compares, right? But
Mm.
it's the feeling, it's the community, it's the people, it's the founder, it's the face of the brand, it's
Right.
everything that they've created over the years. Now, if you take, an example of a much bigger brand, like take Coca-Cola, or take, any of the bigger brands out there. Look at Nike recently, right? How they're struggling. It's much more difficult because, first of all, they're in a much bigger space. They're covering a much bigger part of the market. They're huge. They've scaled globally. They're everywhere. They cover every single segment of the market. Every single segment of that market is covered by them. And there's also many different communities and sub communities within every one of those segments that they're covering. So how can you be present and be so niche and
Mm.
so specific to the niche in so many different ways, right? This is
Mm.
now the challenge, I think, that all the big brands are facing.
Are you
So yeah, go
sorry, I
ahead.
didn't mean to interrupt you. Go on,
No,
Oana.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, because off air we've also talked about this concept of super fans. Are you kind of suggesting these like pockets of customers and niches to find are these kind of super fans? And I think Gymshark's a great example because it's done well to stay relevant, right? It started off with the origin story of Ben doing
Mhm,
making the garments from, I think, his grandma's
Yeah.
house or factory or whatever,
mhm,
sewing things
mhm,
himself at university as a Pizza Hut delivery person, and then it's grown. But now it's not just about Ben, although he features
Mm.
it, within this kind of messaging a lot. It's more about what those things that you mentioned, like community. Like I went to their flagship store in on Regent Street in London, and I saw it there. I felt the community actually in the store. You know, they had a gym there. They were giving free PT sessions. They had the cafe there with um like collaboration with what's the is it
Joe
Joe?
and Juice. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it was just like it felt like a place where you just want to come and hang out, right?
Yeah, I've been there too. And actually, when you go in, you're like in a gym, like everything, every mannequin shows the product in the way that a person would actually use it. I remember I went in and right at the sort of close to the entry, there was this mannequin sort of doing a move and they were holding a water bottle. And they had like a cap and some accessories and like everything was there on purpose because of how they would use it. It's really well thought through, you know.
Yeah. So can you give us I mean, don't want to put you on the spot here, but can you give us some kind of practical tips on how companies, especially the smaller companies, can start building some of these kind of these elements that you mentioned, like the community? Because I think that's all about, again, off air, you've talked about selling a feeling and not a product. And I think that's the core of it, right?
Yeah.
So how can the smaller companies start doing that, and what can they do?
I mean, I think also different companies will have to do this differently. You know, I think not everyone can be a Gymshark and not everyone is a Ben Francis that loves that community. I think if we want to unpack Gymshark's story for a second to understand why it is what it is because the guy who founded it was so enamored with that community. He wanted to be part of that community. He would have done anything to be part of it. He wanted to just have access to those people and feel a part of that community. This is how it started. And this is the best way to start because, you know, like he understands that community better than anyone. And everyone working in the company is young enough to understand it. Everyone has joined almost since the beginning, as far as I know. I don't know them intimately, you know, from the inside, but from what I read and what I hear from them, because they're very open to it, is, you know, there's still most of the same OG people that have started, you know, and some other new ones that have come along the way. Where I'm going with this is that imagine now, you know, top management in a company like Gymshark is still very close in age to the community that they're talking to.
Yeah.
I think this is crucial. Because imagine now Gymshark, you know, grows and scales and goes global. And then when you go global, the way that different cultures will perceive you will be different. So you will have to adapt a lot of the messaging. And that's where, you know, you'd start to tone it down a bit, you know, some of the messaging, because you can't show up in the same way in India as you do in the UK, you know, or in Saudi Arabia. There's so many different cultural aspects and legalities that you have to consider. But then the other thing is simply by just letting the time pass, imagine it's 30, 40 years in the future, the founder is not there, the founder is much older. Who's the community? Right? So like, this is how I think about this thing is like, where's top management placed in that journey and where is the community? If top management is somewhere like super high up in a very different space than the actual community, you have a problem. You know, so like, I'm not a fan of giving recipes that work for everyone, because I think every single industry and every single brand is different, and some brands are built on, you know, much simpler products and much simpler offerings, and they're not necessarily built on a community. And you can build somehow of a community around it. It's not going to be the same level of loyalty that, for example, Gymshark has for this exact reason, right? But as you evolve the brand, the connection with the community also just starts to water down a little bit.
What are your thoughts on this idea of being customer centric, customer centric or oriented marketing? Like, does it exist in the world of marketing? Like, especially with companies that already like have products in place and they have shareholders and they they have targets and stuff. Like, as a marketer, do you stop being customer orientated? Are you, or like, how have you? What's your view on that?
That's a very tough and sensitive question that I
Yeah.
think I'm gonna get a little bit of a feedback from my colleagues out there in the world. I don't think any marketer would ever say that they're not consumer centric. That just
Mm,
goes against everything that we stand for as a
mm,
community of marketers.
mm,
But I will tell you what the reality of our everyday life looks like. Ask yourself where you spend the majority of your time, right? Throughout the day. What kind of tasks do you do? Do they have anything to do with speaking to consumers face to face?
mm,
Right.
If you don't do that, then sorry to break it to you, it's you're not very consumer centric. And listen, I get it. I'm not pointing fingers here. Like, I'm the first one that is not, necessarily or hasn't done it, because you don't have time, because you have to deliver, because you have to do a lot of other things. You need to manage teams. You need to be in meetings. You need to, have presentations and do other stuff that you do in companies, right?
mm,
And then you also look at spreadsheets and you get a lot of data and you try to interpret what the majority of consumers will, especially when it's a big company, it's
mm,
all the more complex, because how can you speak to one customer, in Germany or in the UK and say that you've gotten any sort of real insight that you can, extrapolate to all the consumers that you speak to. And so, you never think about that. But in my experience, when you actually take time of your day, every week, every month, or every other month, whatever you can, to actually go to a store, to actually get on a call with a consumer, you get a lot of insights. And there's this company that is called Water Drop. Maybe you know it. They have these little drops.
It's relevant
Uh,
to the show, isn't it?
yeah, scented
yeah.
water, right? Yes, water cooler, water drop. So
What
I saw them doing it and I thought it was genius. So basically, I think it's once a month. They have a top management meeting. So everyone, imagine, like, everyone in the boardroom, and then they have a conversation with a consumer somewhere in
Mm,
the world, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes the consumers would be in their car, and I saw pictures like everyone in the boardroom and the consumer like on their phones, sort of like being in a parking lot somewhere, and being on their phones. It's
Yeah.
really funny. But then that's what that's how I found out in one of their CEO's posts, is that they figured out so much good insight about how consumers actually use the product.
Mm.
mm,
you know how do you use it? What is the process? How do you put the drop in? What do you do afterwards? Do you wash the bottle? Because we also sell bottles. There's a ton of questions. And
yeah.
yes, it's one consumer somewhere. At that time, it was somewhere in the US, but that consumer will tell you something that will make you think about, the process or the product or the packaging in a completely different way
Yeah.
than before. And then there's another example, a company called Heights from the UK. They sell supplements. I love their
Yeah.
packaging,
Yeah.
and they did
Yeah.
exactly the same thing. They spoke to consumers about how, the sort of the supplement bottles would sit in their kitchen, on their kitchen counters,
Mm.
and how would those bottles upset the flow of things in their kitchen and on the counter. And then they ended up coming up with one single packaging that would just be much better suited for that
Mm.
environment.
Mm.
So I think it's crucial, and we just don't do it enough.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, I think because obviously you can do that primary research, you can do the secondary research, and then the ethnographic research that you just mentioned there, like going in places and seeing how people behave and react to certain things. But uh, do you feel like it's more of a time issue with a lot of companies, or do you think it's a resource issue? Or the third thing is, well, we've got a product now, and now just sell it, like sell it as it is. Do you think that's the issue in most cases?
I think it's all of those issues, like all of the above. I think it's everything. You don't have time. You have to. You're specialized in one thing, and so, like, is it even your responsibility to call a consumer somewhere?
Mm,
Like in my previous role, like, would it be my responsibility to call a consumer in South Africa and ask them how they're, using their caps and how they're using their bag? I don't know. It's a matter of ownership on things and responsibilities, and also the setup of the company. There's people for everything, right? And so there's like a customer sort of relationship sort of department. There's a retail. There's a product marketing. There's all these different departments, and you
mm,
don't necessarily think that you need to do it, or that's even part of your job description. Plus, there's so many other things that you need to focus on. And so again,
mm,
that's why I'm not pointing fingers, but at the same time I recognize that I don't think we spend enough time talking to consumers, and also understanding that in front of the screen, behind the social media channel and engagement that you have with all these people, there's actual humans that
Mm. Mm.
you want to engage with you and your brand and your product. And if you don't know them enough, you're not going to be able to.
Do you think that's why some brands then fail to grow? Because the way we broke it down, we've talked about if we were to bring hacks into, like, we like to say, right, if we could give you some hacks on how to do this. First, you're saying you find a community to key into to engage with, then you listen and you respond, right? So, do you think a lot of the failure comes in if brands or companies aren't willing to to react? They've got to be in a brave state to actually react to what they're hearing, right? Do you think that's why they fail if they don't do
You
that?
know what? I don't think it works like that. I think you can grow without doing these things
Right? Okay.
in detail. I think you can absolutely grow by doing a lot of performance marketing tactics,
Right.
mhm,
and you will grow, especially if you grow from nothing. Of course you're going to grow. If you have a good, I mean, let's not forget that it's not all about just marketing and social media. I know that we love to think these days that it's all about us in marketing and social media, but let's remember that it's also about having a good product, right? If the
Yeah.
product is good,
Yeah.
you know and the packaging is okay, and the distribution, like I've never heard anyone online talking about, if you have a good distribution, then you can make it. Like, distribution can make or break your business. It'll not, forget about the marketing, you know what I mean? If the product is not in the store, you can have the best marketing you want, but if it's not going to be there, it's not going to sell, right?
mm,
So, leaving all the basics aside, which are not really basics, you can grow. You can grow without having that intimate relationship with the consumer and without having an engaged community. I think that what will happen is, let's separate growing a business and just a regular brand, if you will, a product brand, from a real brand, a brand that you want to make an impact and leave a legacy with,
Right.
right? Because, like, for me, those are like two different objectives. Now,
mm,
if you are in the space where you want to build a brand, like, I'm guessing Ben Francis didn't start thinking that he's going to build this, huge brand, but he wanted to have an impact. He wanted to leave some kind of a legacy, right, in some way, shape, or form. Then you think different. Then brand is very important. Then community is important. Then the people
Mhm.
are really important. And so, in order to nurture that and to grow that impact and legacy, then it's important for you to focus on all these things. But sure enough, you can build anything. I mean, like on TikTok right now, all these like miracle serums that you put on your hair, on your scalp, to grow better hair, I can guarantee that they're making a huge business.
mm.
There's a ton of products that you can sell out there, and you're gonna grow. So I don't think it's about just growing. It's about building a brand that makes an impact in the world, and leaves a true legacy behind.
Is
I
that is
agree.
that then
Yeah.
starting to close this loop then, going back to what we wanted to talk about, which is how we keep customers keep buying? Is
Mhm.
that the full loop when if we start to align to that community, engage with it, listen to it, respond, react, is that like the ecosystem then starting to work, do you think, in your mind?
Again, it depends on every brand and the scale
Yeah.
of it. Because
But
I,
in
you know,
essence, if we were to
in
kind of make
essence, yes. I think, in essence, if you want to boil it down to it, is, the way I look at it is, you years ago, when brands would speak and consumers would listen, right? There was no interaction on social media. You would broadcast a message, and
Yeah.
you reach millions of people, but you didn't know what the interaction was, right? So you were just reaching a wide audience, no feedback. We then went to the next stage of creating the followers, right? With social media, you start to have followers, people that would engage with you, would, pay attention to what you're doing, be interested, show some interest. There was some kind of an interaction. And then now we're much more in the era of community, right now we are in the era of building communities. There's
Mm.
a much closer engagement interaction that can form between brands and consumers. And there's still those levels. There's
Yeah.
like audience
Yeah.
is not community. There's followers is also not community, right? And then you have community, which is a much more loyal group that sort of sits around you. And then I think there's one step forward, which is the super fan. And the super fan is, the person who will experience anything, like if you think about your audience and your super fans, everything that you're going to put out, whether it's the water cooler, if there's any kind of LinkedIn post, if there's any product, that you're ever going to do, if there's merch that is
Mm.
coming out with the water cooler, I'm going to buy it, because I'm a super fan.
Yes.
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 Right.
Active designing it
So
now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, you have
No, I'm
to.
not. No one will buy it
you
then.
know
No,
I
no.
can
I'm.
see
It
the
went just
tote
said.
bag, I can see the cap going, and there's
There's
going to be
definitely
so
going to be a
many,
cap.
so
100%.
think about all the levels. And the way I look at it is also product ecosystems,
Yeah.
right? Brand ecosystems that
Mm,
you build around that brand, because it's not just the water cooler. There's so many other things around it that you can build because the brand is strong. And so the super fans will go and experience and buy everything that you do. Look at Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
It's the best example. She has a huge audience, but then she has those crazy super fans, right? The
yeah.
Swifties around the world, and they will just do anything for her. So
Yeah.
that's the level that I think we need to aspire to.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that we're always going to achieve it. And then the question is, how do you bring them to your environment? How do you make them super fans? And then how do you nurture them?
Mm.
And how do you then create more products and experiences for them?
Amazing.
Yeah. I think. Um. I guess the idea comes from the Kevin Kelly's concept of like the 1,000 true fans, right?
Mhm.
Is that right? Like, is that concept changed, if at all? Like, is it something that is still very underrated then in your book? And in your view, is it underrated for I think the smaller startups?
It's totally underrated. And I don't remember his name, Brian something, the CEO of Airbnb.
Yeah.
He said recently on one of the podcasts that he was on that the biggest mistake that startups do is that they think of how to build huge audiences and reach, I don't know, like 10,000 signups. And they don't worry enough about reaching that, that first 100 sort of fans,
Mm.
those 100 fans that will sign up. Because he says from that 100 sort of group, it will just spread. If
Mm.
those people really believe in you and if they're really fans of what you're doing, they will support you. They will become your advocates. And this is then growing to like from 100 to 1,000, 10,000, a million, a
Mm.
billion, whatever it is, right? And I think what is underrated is the power of the word of mouth and the
Yeah.
one-to-one
100%.
relationship. I'll give you an example. When I started my presence online, I went in obviously not thinking I knew as a marketing director what building a community was. And very quickly, I was very humbled when I saw that nobody was paying freaking attention to anything that I was saying. And that amount of humility is what I needed to understand how it actually all works. If you're not giving value, you're not going to have any fan, let alone a super fan. And it's not about what what you think is important. It's about the value that these people are going to get from you and who you're actually going to help with
Mm.
what you say, with what you do, with the product that you're putting out there.
Mm.
So that's when the light bulb went on me when I had to do it for myself. Beforehand, honestly, you know, it was there as a concept. I knew what it was to build a community, but before I did it myself, I didn't understand how it actually works in detail. So that's the point that I'm trying to make, is like, don't worry so much about the millions, worry about the 1%, you know? And
Mm,
I think this relates so much to today's marketing. Today's marketing is about reaching millions, you know? The messages that you see are so diluted because we're thinking about, okay, what can we say that we can reach everyone
All at
that
the same
buys our
time.
product,
Yeah.
right? It should really be about who's the one person, that one insight, that one consumer that Water Drop was talking to and then was saying, actually, I'm not using the product like this, I'm using it like this.
Mm.
yeah,
I'm not putting the drop inside like this.
Yeah.
I'm actually doing something else. And just take that as an insight, put that in a, in a marketing context, in a message, and
Yeah.
see how that reaches
It
yeah.
also
not
it
the
also
masses,
works.
but yeah.
It also works with product innovation too, right? And
Mm,
I remember like when I came back to this country and I started working back in corporate, and I had a really great innovator. He was actually one of the founders of Boohoo, and he always told me this story about Swan matches. The Matchbox.
Hmm.
yeah,
Up until Swan, like Matchboxes had two sides of sandpaper, and because they actually listened to their employees and listened to somebody who worked on the shop floor who actually smoked. I mean, heavy smoker, so he used matches 24/7. And he was like, why, if we want to cut costs, why do we put sandpaper on both sides of the box when we're only ever going to use one? He's like, I smoke every day, and if you look on my Matchbox, there's that single line on one side that I always use because he puts the logo up the right way and he strokes this way. This side was never used. They actually completely just took it off the
Yeah.
Matchbox, and never
Genius.
again would you see a Matchbox with it on two sides. It's insane. It's such a simple thing. But again,
Yeah.
without engaging with him and trusting it and believing it, I wanted to be brave enough to make that move. That would have never changed. And I think just talking to Lena in the past, Gillette did something similar with the Indian market, and to make the cost cheaper, they actually made the handle of the actual razor hollow so they could reduce costs, and then that became the market leader in India based off of like the insight they got, and because they needed to lower the cost, it then became a market leader because it reached more people. It's like just crazy just how listening can change
yeah.
everything, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing with insights, like you said, Duana. Yeah, you can get bogged down in so much data, but sometimes it's not like what people have been doing; it's what people
Mm,
potentially can be doing, and you're designing things around that. Whether,
mm,
like Wes said, it's product innovation or just your messaging. I
mhm,
like what Rory Sutherland says in one of his talk. It's not about kind of changing the world. It's about changing how people view the world, and that
yeah,
could be done with products, that could be done with the same product but a different type of story and a message, right?
mm,
Hmm.
So yeah, I like that idea of how we're using insights there.
mm.
Yeah,
But
I
anyway,
call that connecting the dots,
yeah,
It's
Mm,
there's dots that we never connect because we don't allow ourselves the time to think about them and to I think also one of the issues that I see with the marketing industry is that we love to be on an island, We live on an
mm,
island together and we're just happy together. We're one big community. We go to the events where we're all together. And it's not really often that we go out of the bubble, because
mm,
kind of everything happens in the
mm,
bubble. And I think the magic happens when you go out of the bubble and you experience the world outside,
mhm,
and last year I went to this consumer insights event in Berlin, and I learned so much from it, and it wasn't really my area. There was no reason why I should have gone there. I was invited to speak. I said yes. I didn't know what to expect. I made a lot of friends. I learned so much about the industry. I made so many connections in my mind
mm,
as to, oh, I understand so much better now, some things that, are going on, why this is how they operate, this is how we operate, and this is how you understand the other departments as well, like how are you going to collaborate really well with your finance team
without
when there's always friction because they don't give us the budget. Why don't you go to like an offsite and see what their own struggles are, or
mhm,
go to one of those big events that they do and like figure out what the industry is about and what they're challenged with, and then you will understand, you will connect the dots much better.
Mm.
You know what's really refreshing listening to you speak, Oana? It's like you have got that whole holistic feel about the whole. You know, you talk about those different departments, and you as a marketer, this is what's refreshing. You also talk like a brander. Like we do this a lot in our workshops, and it's a big thing for us, is breaking down those silos and where people are
Yeah.
working together. Like
Mm.
we sometimes won't even take workshops on if not
If there's no
everyone is
alignment.
involved or representation from each department is involved, because a strategy will only live as long as that workshop day, right? And it'll crumble afterwards if that's not
Mm.
happening with the wider team and going forward. So I love hearing that and that
Can I
perspective
ask
from
this
you as
the
well.
famous question now, Ash, that
If
you
you
love?
must, if you must.
I know you love this. This is your time. This is your time, Ash. So,
Just let Wes answer it because he loves the
Oana,
sound of his own voice.
Oana, no, this is. If you could ask us a question, what would it be? If you had time to think about this, or are you gonna just fire from the hip?
No, I'm gonna ask you what I'm asking every single marketer that I'm talking to these days, because that's exactly the question that I always ask, which is, what are you excited about in marketing these days? What excites you? What motivates you? What makes your day brighter about the industry that we're in?
Hmm.
Go on.
Can I answer that?
Yeah, I'd love to hear this. Yeah.
I'm excited about more and more people learning more about branding and doing things differently, and that's then becomes a strategy and not just. It sounds like a little bit of a, I don't know. Something that doesn't happen enough, but I see it happen more often. There are more brave marketers coming out and saying,
Mhm.
we should be. I know this is how it has been done, but we're doing this, and we see more of that definitely within our workshops.
I think being brave is right. Like, I think what I'm excited about is because of all the noise, because of all the oversaturation of companies that spawn every day. Is like, once the CEOs start to understand that they have to be brave and they have to step outside that comfort zone, and again, keen into what you've just said, like listening, responding, and reacting, then they're forced to come up with different ways of doing things. They're forced to innovate, whether through marketing, messaging, experience, whatever it is, or even product. And I
Mhm.
think that's forcing us, it's forcing brands to be brave, to try and break through that noise. It definitely is. And we're
Mm.
Yeah,
seeing a
it'll
lot
be
of
good to read some of the comments. If the
that.
people who are on listening in, they can also share what they're excited about. That would be really cool to see.
Yeah, and we can, and because these are lives, we can always just revisit the chat after, which is great. And if you want to take the time to speak to people, then feel free to do so. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
So yeah, another one that
that's
just
an hour.
flew by.
Hour.
Oana, what's going on in your world in the future that you want to talk about? I know you've talked about this marketing intelligence platform. You're probably going
Mhm.
to talk about it a little bit more, so people should follow you to keep updated on that. Is that your primary focus at the moment?
It is, yeah, yeah. It's definitely the primary focus. It's a very ambitious project. I'm very lucky to have some people that believe in me and are working together with me on this already. Gathering more hands to help in, especially on the social media side and also on the content creation side. Um, I want to say what excites me about the future is that I see
Mm,
a world of opportunities for someone like us. Someone like us that is able to connect the dots. I have to preface this with the fact that I've always been a generalist, and I've always gotten in trouble because of it, right? Because your job description says you have to do this, and that's what we're paying you, Anna,
yeah.
not for your big dreams. Fair enough. And so, like, there's been places where this type of personality was great, some others were not. Bottom line is, this is the time where generalists are going to have a huge opportunity, because literally you don't have to be in, at least in the world of marketing, right? I'm not saying about being a doctor or being a lawyer, like very different things, but in marketing you don't have to really be a specialist at anything. There will be tools that will allow us to design, to write, to compose anything, right?
Mm.
We can be creative in ways that were not possible before. I can't draw, I can't design like you guys, but
Snap.
honestly,
Like,
I can do so much more now with everything that is available. And I think
Yeah.
this is the biggest opportunity. And my mission with the Unmatched is to elevate those voices in marketing, to allow people to come together, to collaborate, to elevate the human values that we have, much more in the industry than we are using right now. I think we need to remember what we're doing this for. Even the tools, technology exists for people to use it. Products are there for people to use them. It's not just because we want to win awards at Cannes and be like cool in magazines and be good marketers. At the end of the day, it's about the people that we serve, right?
Yeah,
And if
100%.
you extrapolate that at the brand level, it works exactly the same way. I don't think there's a platform out there yet that tackles things in this way. And this is where I see a big opportunity to, on one side, elevate the voices in the industry, give voice to the people, to the marketers who have something meaningful and valuable to say, to elevate collaboration and to also elevate those human values. So
That's a
that's
beautiful.
that's my mission.
Well, I was going to say that's a beautiful way to end, the kind of hinting on your why, mission, and vision there as well.
amazing.
I absolutely love
And
that.
can I just add to that? Like, I
Yeah.
just want to publicly thank you for helping me, and that keys into what you just said about what she's about. Like, she helped me massively. I don't think she
Well,
realized.
you help me too. You help me every day, so
It's a spa
we're
session.
friends.
Cool, I'm
We're
good with
friends,
that.
Wes.
I just want to let people know, like, I appreciate that. Like,
You're
you
the
do
best.
that. All right. So yeah,
Well,
I think
yeah.
wrapping up
Listen,
the hour.
thanks so much for your time, Oana. LinkedIn is obviously a place where people can follow you. They should definitely check out the Unmatched podcast if they haven't already.
Especially our episode.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Especially
That
our
was one of the best episodes ever.
yeah. And I actually did all right there because I was asked a load of questions. So
It,
yeah,
it
did
did
good,
really
man.
great. It
Yeah,
did
you
really
did good.
good.
We were proud of you, man. We
thank
were
you.
proud of you.
It was one of the best, honestly. And I had a lot of fun chatting with you guys today. I really appreciate it. You have a very, very cool community as well. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you guys.
Appreciate you.
Thanks so much, Oana.
Keep
Have
in
a great
touch.
weekend.
Iguana, and
Ciao.
yeah,
Take care.
be good. Have a great
Bye.
weekend. We'll see you later.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Wow,
She's amazing, ain't she?
I love that lady. I really
Yeah,
do. Martin missed out today. Although he's
definitely.
been sending us photos of wedding in WhatsApp. Where you saw that?
So,
Right.
Wes,
Yeah,
um, usually like it's 2 weeks
yeah. But this is the
for the
guy.
next
This is the
episode.
guy that couldn't make it, and we had to record it. So we're going to do something slightly unorthodox next week. So we're actually going to air, and we'll be on to chat. We'll be in the chat. We'll be in, but we're actually going to air this super mad special guest who couldn't make it for very last minute, and we had to pull out. And I guess you guys all were wondering what was going on. But yeah, this kid is a G, a Don, another Don Perignon, and I can't wait. I can't wait. It's a shame we couldn't do it live, but
The topic was called, and it might give it away who the guest is, but the topic was called "The Power of Behavioral Science in Branding." So,
yeah. And
yeah, we
the
managed to get
recording was amazing. Like, I loved it. Unedited, it's unclipped. It's literally played as we would do it. So
yeah, totally. And like Wes said, when we do broadcast that next week, we'll be in the comments, so we'll be talking to you guys as well. So make sure you're there. And then the following week, we've got another episode because that's what
Wait,
naturally would have
roll back
happened.
again.
Yeah.
So you got us back to back 3 times.
But thanks so much for showing up, everyone. John, Sharon, Bandel, Lena, as
Morning,
usual.
shout,
Thanks so
man.
much for being here.
Yeah, man.
Really
Good.
appreciate your time. Ian as well. Cheers, man.
Yeah. Have a great week, guys. We'll literally hear from you next week.
Take care.
Peace out.